couple of things. Number one, when I hear terms like corrosive elements used by Mark Emmert or corruption, this is business as usual. So we don't need to use terms to debase our sport. This is what our sport has always been. I heard you guys allude to that before. I do applaud the NCAA for a second for trying to move the ball a yard down the field, which is something that they should have done 50 years ago. So I give them credit in that element. But when you say we're going to enhance sweeping changes within the college basketball system, it's not necessarily true. These are all things that have already occurred. So we're making it we're saying it's allowed for agents to represent college players. Agents have already been representing college players. Maybe not legally, but they've been doing that. How come an agent can't represent a kid in high school? What's the difference? When you start seeing, and plus, if I'm an agent, I'm going to throw this up in arms because now my terms are dictated by USA Basketball. The only actual entity that can dictate what agents can do is the players' union. So the union needs to be in control of that. That's not the NCAA saying now. So almost in a way, this makes me think, are the NBA and the NCAA almost in bed together to a certain degree? And if they are, when does the union step in? And when does a guy like LeBron James, who's the vice president of the union, or Michelle Roberts say, hey, this is enough. We have to find different ways for players to actually have some revenue. And look, the NBA already has a group licensing agreement. This model has been done before. So we're talking about the two highest grossing revenue sports, which are football and basketball. Yeah, Title IX's involved. Give it to the women too. But there should be some kind of revenue sharing for everybody in this. Maybe this is a step in the right direction, but this seems more like a cloak, right? Instead of actually getting to the actual issue right away.
Go ahead, Ryan, because the three of us generally are all of the same mind, that this feels like something that they were forced to do something because this is no longer just public pressure or a bunch of kids that no one wants to listen to. This is now the FBI getting involved in our sport, and it makes everybody look very bad. So we need to do something. Let's get Condoleezza Rice and let her recommend a bunch of stuff, and then we'll implement the absolute minimum of it in an extremely clumsy way. But let's even put that to the side for a minute here, and then sit back and expect everyone to applaud what we've done.
There's a million directions we can go in here. Let's just do the one where it's about the kid going back, okay? Because you guys play. I never played in anything that anyone ever cared about. But I know enough athletes to know that we can sit there and we can say, oh, no, we got to make sure the kid is protected here. A lot of kids that go to school to play hoops, even if they always think they're good enough. And a lot of them show up to school and they're not interested in school. I wasn't even an athlete. In the beginning of my college career, I wasn't interested in being a student. So we're going to set up something where if you go to college, you have no interest, you declare knowing there's a good chance you may not get drafted, and then everybody's supposed to find a way to make sure we can adapt to you. Like when Calipari says, if you go in the second round and you don't like where you're picked, you should be able to go back to school. Like, why are we so protective of people? Like, why can't we let people make these decisions? Like, if you decide, hey, I'm not really into school, I'm going to see if I can get drafted. And then the same kid that goes undrafted.
All this could be changed, though, by the end of this year when the one-and-done rule could be done.
Yeah, but the one-and-done rule, we already think that it's not going to be enacted, and that's not going to be changed until 2021 or 2022. So even if they change it, it's not going to be in place, I don't think, at least for next year's draft. I think we're a ways away from that.
I just feel like there should be some power in the players' hands because there's a lot of power in the coaches' hands. And let's not forget that these coaches, primarily some of the biggest coaches, were the ones complaining about the fact about this one and done, about how it's going to affect the recruiting. But these are the guys that say you're making $3-4 million a year to go recruit. That's your job to go recruit. So regardless of whether a kid wants to go into the draft and he's in the second round, he wants to come back, then let him come back and let him go to another school like Jay had said before. Like the kids should have the power.
So you actually think it's okay for everybody, and we can sit here and think that college and the NBA are a partnership. They're not. They've both made up their own rules with their own timelines that strictly look out for their own property. And I get that part of it. But you think evolution here for this is that a player who's in college who isn't even good enough to go in the first round, who declares, goes in the second round and says, I don't like that the Kings took me. Think the NBA team is just screwed, and he should be able to go back not only to the school he left, but any school he wants to go to?
Well, how about if you're able to implement rules where the team in the second round, if they draft them, they can retain your rights, but you're allowed to go back to school? But there's ways you can continue to evolve.
Let's make it 100% clear. That was just John Calipari suggesting it. Let's just stick to the things they actually enacted here. How about we come to a decision once and for all? Are players in high-revenue sports in college Are they or are they not employees of the university? Can
Yes.
we just make that decision once and for all? And because everything else should then become obvious. Because they've been trying to tell us for the longest time and continue to, they're not employees, but we are going to make all these rules that only apply to them and don't apply to anybody else. Well, then what are they? You are now treating them like employees when it works for you, and when it's inconvenient, you talk about them as student athletes. If you want them to be employees, let's change the rules entirely. If you don't want them to be employees, then if I went to school someplace and I wasn't happy there, I could transfer anywhere I wanted to. So why in the world can't a basketball player or a football player do that? If someone else wants it, why should anyone stop that?
There wasn't a coaching staff putting in 2 years of time and resources into bringing
Oh,
you in.
my God. Poor them.
That's like recruiting, though. It's like a big-time company going to a college and recruiting
But
kids
to
out of
act
college.
like just because you don't like your math classes that you're going to go somewhere else, that is the same thing as somebody that's like a top 50 recruit. Like, I don't know. I mean, if you guys want it to just be a free-for-all and everybody can leave like every week in college sports, okay, fine. But it's going to be insane.